Hello and welcome to Higher Automation, the podcast brought to you by Robotics, where we explore smarter solutions for your inventory storage and fulfillment operations. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney, and today we are shifting gears a bit, but stick with me now because instead of warehouse automation, we are talking about robots that fight for a living. Here with some of the best builders and battlers in the game. Team Valkyrie, sponsored in part by Robotics, just secured a major win at the BattleBots face-offs against some of the most destructive robots in the sport. We will hear all about their journey, the engineering behind their destructive designs, and how combat robotics is helping to shape the next generation of problem solvers. We have some great guests for you today. Joining us, three incredible engineers from Team Valkyrie. First, we have Leanne Cushing, Valkyrie's captain and a senior product design engineer at Backbone. She leads the charge in both the combat arena and the world of gaming hardware. And next up, we have Bam Singh-Sane, Valkyrie's driver and a product designer at Crunch Labs, where she develops toys that inspire kids to become creative problem solvers. And finally, Alex Crease, a design engineer for Valkyrie and a sustainable product development consultant by day, helping organizations reduce their environmental impact while creating business value. Want to welcome all of you to the show. So great to have you here today.
Thank you.
So for those who may not be familiar with BattleBots and who Team Valkyrie is, what's your team story? Leanne, you're the captain, so can we start with you?
Sure. So if you're not familiar with BattleBots, BattleBots is basically a 250-pound fighting robot competition, aired on TV usually. And Valkyrie came out of me being on a team in 2016 and our team getting disqualified. I channeled that upset energy into creating Valkyrie, and Alex was one of my first recruits. And our first season was in 2018.
And Alex, tell me about being the first recruit.
Yeah, so I had known Leanne for a bit. I was an intern for her when I was an engineering undergrad in college. And, I'd grown up watching BattleBots, participating in things like First Robotics, which is a high school robotics tournament. And I always loved robots because I felt like they were so inspirational, seeing these crazy machines and mechanisms doing these amazing things. That's what really got me excited about engineering. And so I really wanted to get involved with BattleBots because I really wanted to give back that inspiration to the next generation of engineers. That's something that makes BattleBots really special, is that, yes, inside the battle box, there's all of this fighting and destruction, but really at its core, what the show is about is it's about inspiring engineers, getting people thinking about new crazy ways to solve problems, and getting everyone really excited about robotics. And so that's why I fell in love with robots. That's why I love being a part of Team Valkyrie, and that's how I kind of got sucked in over the last several years. And so I've been a part of the team since our inception in 2018. I've helped Valkyrie go from kind of this idea all the way to what it is today. Seen a lot of fights, had a lot of ups and downs throughout many seasons of the show. A couple years ago in 2022, we were prepping for a new season. I was in grad school at the time, and we needed a couple extra hands to help with some of the last minute design tasks and putting the robot together. And I'd grown very close to Bam in graduate school. She was a good friend of mine. We'd worked on a lot of projects together, and so I knew that she was really good at getting into projects, getting her hands dirty, and figuring out how to solve crazy problems like we do on BattleBots. So I pulled her in, and she started kind of just diving right into the deep end with Valkyrie and figuring out some of the major design and fabrication challenges we had in that season.
So Alex got sucked in and Bam, you got pulled in. So I guess not as intense of a pull there, but tell me how you got connected with Valkyrie.
So as Alex mentioned, I became good friends with him in grad school, and then I got pulled into a team for season 7. And it was a really exciting time for me because at the time I was not familiar with BattleBots at all. I just knew that it was a cool thing that he did. I never really watched the show and knew none of the robots. So it was a really fun and exciting learning experience for me. And in addition to attending the filming for season 7, I also met really, really cool people and then got more involved with the community. I also got more involved with building my own Beetleweight, which is a 3-pound combat robot. And that's where I continued iterating on many versions of my robot named Nightlight. And we're currently on version 9 right now. And I also got some more time in the box driving my own robot. And that has kind of translated into the recent Fall Face Off series, where I got to drive Valkyrie for the first time. And that was a really, really unique and exciting and scary, to be honest, experience for me, because driving, a robot with a 65-pound blade spinning is extremely scary. And there's so much kind of, it was a really big responsibility because everyone put so much work into the robot. But I was very grateful that I was given the trust and the responsibility for driving the robot in the latest series. And yeah, it was also funny because I made the realization that I had more time driving robots than actually driving a car.
That's a lot of drive time. That's a lot of drive time. So I love that you were all able to kind of share your story, because I think that's going to be really helpful for our audience as we go through with this, because I've heard from all of you. First of all, it's a lot of work, right? It's not something that happens overnight, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this. So let's kind of kick things off in a way for this conversation with something that you all must be so proud of, a huge moment. Valkyrie recently won at the BattleBots face-offs. What was going through your minds during that final match?
We were all so nervous. It was very scary. We headed into the fight being like, okay, we could potentially win this whole thing, or this was our third time fighting Hypershock, and it might just be the same result as it has happened previously. We fought Hypershock twice before, and it did not go well. So that made it extremely difficult going into the fight as well. However, we spent the past 3 days working on the robot and getting a lot of box practice time. So we gained confidence in the robot, and we were really more ready than we have ever been going into that fight. And for me personally, I watched many matches and like played scenarios over and over again in my head in preparation for the match. So we did what we could in preparation for the match. And also, it was maybe better that I wasn't there previously in the first 2 fights, because it didn't go well for us, but Leanne and Alex was there, so I bet there was a lot more going on in their minds.
Yeah. I know personally, I'm a math person, so if you were to say like best 2 out of 3, well, they already got us twice. So are we gonna win the third time? And like I don't think without Bam, I don't know if we would have been able to do it. I think that us having a different driver first time against Hypershock, we actually had. That fight was history making for BattleBots. It was 2 female drivers, like women driving robots, which is the first time that has been the case. There's so few women that do drive robots in BattleBots.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It was really, really great and crazy that we were able to win one of them.
Yeah, I think another thing that's just so crazy about this entire weekend was we had 3 fights in face-offs. What happens is 4 teams get invited to the BattleBots arena over the course of a weekend, and all of the teams fight each other, and then a winner is crowned. And so we were in the most destructive weekend that there possibly could be of all of the different competitors that signed up for face-offs. There was us and us on Team Valkyrie. We've won the most destructive robot award before in 2020. There was Hypershock. Hypershock has won awards for best driver. They've won awards for most destructive. And then there's also Tombstone, who's a BattleBots legend, has won the entire BattleBots competition in the past and has also won the most destructive robot award. And then we also had in our cohort, we had Orbitron, which was a new robot that's done really well and uses AI to help drive and steer the robot. And so it was a really, really tough competition. And it's just so incredible that we were able to face off against such legendary opponents. We were able to beat Tombstone. We were able to beat Hypershock. Our first match was against Orbitron, which didn't go as well. We ended up losing that one, but it's so crazy that we didn't expect to win coming into this. And it was just so shocking going into that Hypershock fight where we had beaten Tombstone and lost to Orbitron. And we made the connection that, hey, if we win this, we could win this entire weekend. We could win the giant washer for this weekend, which is the trophy that we get at the end. And so just thinking about the stakes going from like, oh, like it's a hard bracket, it'll be okay if we don't want to win, it's not that big of a deal, we get some good driving practice, to like, oh my gosh, like we could actually do this. I remember I'm one of Bam's coaches when driving, when she's driving in the box, and the fights seem like they last forever when you're actually there watching them, and then you rewatch them and it's like, oh, that was only like 20 seconds, what happened? But it's just so like Bam did such a good job executing on our strategy. We had some really long strategy discussions before, going over what went wrong in our previous fights against Hypershock and what we could do better this time, and how we could kind of avoid the traps that we fell into in our last fights. And it came down to Bam actually practicing the first 2 seconds of the fight. Those are the most important. If we could avoid their box rush, then we had a chance to win. And so if you watch in the fight, we just narrowly miss Hypershock coming towards us, and that gives us enough time to spin our weapon up to full speed and get a really solid hit on them. And so it was just so incredible that we set this strategy and it worked. And like we did the things that we had set out to do. I think it's also a testament to how much Valkyrie has improved over the last several years. In one of our first seasons on the show, we fought Hypershock, and just like everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Um, and we have spent so much time over several years iterating, upgrading different aspects of the design to make the robot more reliable, more durable, more resilient, easier to repair. And so it's crazy that like we actually have this moment where we can show like, hey, all of that has finally paid off.
And you have to approach this from so many different angles, which I think is so awesome that the team has such a varied background. You all have very impressive professional backgrounds. Leanne is a mechanical engineer. Bam, you're into product design. Alex, in sustainable product development. How have your careers influenced your approach to combat robotics?
That's a great question. My early career was in manufacturing and logistics. I actually worked for several industrial manufacturing companies, several companies that build robots that serve similar markets to High Robotics, where we are helping organizations move materials and pallets around their warehouses and logistics facilities. So often my role in my early career involved going into production facilities and understanding where there were bottlenecks, how they could be addressed with automated manufacturing equipment. And so I really built this expertise in understanding like how things can be designed so they're easy to manufacture and easy to repair and upgrade. And some of my experience outside of work as well as in work was involved in supporting marketing efforts and education. How do we tell a story? How can we teach or inspire others with the things that we make, so that they can really see the value in them and get excited by them? And so that combination of manufacturing and storytelling has really been influential in how I approach combat robotics, because BattleBots is not just about making the most functional robot or just purely engineering driven, but also a brand that tells a compelling story that gets people excited to watch the show, that gets people engaged and rooting for us. And so I do some of the engineering design work, designing a lot of the structure of the robot over the last several years. But I also really love working on the aesthetics and the industrial design. How do we design a robot that looks really cool? People say, "Wow, that one's so awesome! I love that team. They're the underdogs. We're rooting for them." And so I love that intersection of engineering and storytelling that comes to light with BattleBots, because we're not just making a robot, we're making this experience. We want to have those little kids that are watching the show to see our robot and see our team and see Leanne and be like, wow, she's awesome. I want her to be my role model. And I think Valkyrie is an incredible robot. So I really love the storytelling aspect of that. And that's how my professional career has kind of influenced combat robotics.
Yeah, and like piggybacking on that, I actually remember I've had my own startup for a couple of years, and I was asked at one point who were my like female like lady role models growing up, like who did I look up to, and I was like, I didn't really have one. I mean, I had comic book characters, but that's not real. And I feel like we've had the opportunity, and through Alex's like drive and passion of how we have storytelling and try to inspire you do get to have these like stories coming back of like girls joining their middle school robotics team or high school team or like getting involved with combat, and that's just been really really great. As far as the my drive for doing BattleBots or combat robotics initially, I was really insecure about my materials knowledge. I felt like my degree, when I took class, like I took one material science class and didn't really teach me much. So BattleBots was a way of like you learn the hard way if something's strong enough or not. And then you learn to not do it next time. And that iterative design is like that's like an element of combat you don't really get with a lot of other products or other industries. Like I've designed lawnmowers, consumer electronics, variety of robotics for my career, and like you don't really get the opportunity to take many risks or just like think a different way or like try to approach a problem in a more creative or fun approach. It's always very like make the guaranteed going to work boring bracket, make a drawing for it, get it manufactured or whatever, and there's just no excitement in that. So combat has been a way to like get excited again. And yeah, you get to control the aesthetics. You get to control everything. You can make fun dumb decisions, or you can make fun good decisions, or just decisions you learn later, or not either of those. And yeah, I've grown to have a lot more confidence in my design because like, hey, if you go in and you make something and it can get punted into the air and fall and keep driving multiple times, you've made like a good product. And in consumer electronics, we're constantly breaking our stuff to see like what the average human might like drop their phone. You don't want the phone to break, that type of thing. And then combat kind of prepares you for being okay abusing your toys. And that's just been like I my whole life has changed by doing this, and it's been one of the best things to have said yes to.
And what about you, Bam? What kind of influence have you seen there?
Yeah, so first of all, I work a lot with kids, and so I really truly care about kind of inspiring kids to get excited about engineering, and kids, especially young girls. So that's one of the main reasons I'm on the team and I do BattleBots. And in addition, a big part of product design is about figuring out what needs to get done in addition to how things get done. It's more about like the process as opposed to the product. So when working on a big collaborative project with many people, many moving parts like a combat robot, it's always important for us to figure out what things need to get prioritized, what needs to get done first. It's always a time crunch. There's always more to work on. There's always things to improve. So being able to kind of like prioritize and figure out what is most important is super important for us.
So let's take a look at the flip side for a moment. What lessons from BattleBots maybe helped you become better engineers and designers in your day jobs? Are there any experiences where you faced a tough engineering challenge in the ring that helped reshape your thinking?
The biggest lesson from BattleBots for me is that things will break and things will fail. So we dive into fights without a fear of failure and even an expectation of it. And then when things break, things always break in new ways. We find more better ways to fix it. So there's always this process of iteration and expecting that things will break and then coming up with new ways to fix it and seeing more things break. This iterative process is something that I definitely bring into my work.
Yeah, and echoing that, I agree. I'm the same way. Failing, like I remember early in my career, if like something did fail or something did break, you have this sort of like panic moment of like, oh no, like I'm going to get in so much trouble. And I think that maybe it's trauma, maybe it's experience, maybe it's exposure. By doing so much in robots and having that like consistent failure, things breaking, you just kind of get used to it. So I know now whenever I run into failures with work, I'm like, this is fine. But besides failing, I feel like one of the biggest, sometimes hardest lessons that I've learned with the team has been the variety of ways that people approach different problems and the way that people act under pressure, and that like how you can best facilitate talking to someone or giving feedback or taking feedback, and being humble yourself and not like being pushy or too direct. Like there's just different ways that people respond better, and so learning that everyone's different that way has been really helpful for me when I am like leading my own team or helping with cross-functional teammates, or sometimes you just have a personality you struggle to work with, and fortunately there's so many variety of people at BattleBots, you kind of get to see all the different types of people and how best to like approach working with them, and that's been really helpful. And like I always get along with my coworkers, and I always get along with any team I'm on, and I feel like that's just kind of been the constant learning is helping support people or get them to be their best selves. And I think that that's been probably the most like pride I've had with all the experiences, the people, and seeing their growth.
Yeah, and I think Leanne's great at, like staying calm when things go wrong, being very systematic about what things need to get done when we do experience failures.
Yeah, you don't want to have like everyone in panic if the ship's going down. So there's that.
Yeah, definitely. This question reminds me. So I do sustainable product development consulting, and I've also been teaching product design classes for the last few years. And at one point, one of my students asked me this question of how does your work in sustainable product development intersect with your hobby of BattleBots? And in some cases, they do feel kind of disparate. But I feel like I've learned a lot about how important things like design for repair and design for modularity are. This is something that comes up a lot in sustainability. How do we design products so that they will last longer? How do we design products so that they're easy to fix? How do we design products so that, the parts won't just like break and then you have to throw the whole thing out? And so I've learned a lot about like design methodologies for sustainable product development, and those themes have come up in BattleBot. We've gone 6 seasons without changing the overarching design of Valkyrie, and that's because we took this very modular approach to the design. Other teams often have these very uh, unibody design approaches where they have a single block of metal and they machine the whole chassis out of it, or they weld this whole structure together. But the way we designed Valkyrie actually has made it so that we've doubled our drive power and our drive speed over the last several years without having to make any major design changes. And we have increased our weapon motor power and boosted the reliability of our weapon system by taking this modular approach to our design so that we don't have to change everything just to change one thing. And so I think that's another big lesson that I've taken from BattleBots and applied to my career is how valuable these design for modularity and maintenance and repair can be towards keeping something running for as long as possible, even though literally every year we're throwing it into a ring and having it getting beaten to smithereens, and then having to fix it at the end of the day. So it's a really interesting intersection in that way.
I hear a lot about failure. I think it's come out of all of your mouths at one time or multiple times. I think of that Thomas Edison quote, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And I'm curious because it is a part of life. And it almost seems like the thrill of BattleBots is as much about failing as it is about winning, because failing is so key with reaching success. So when things go wrong, how do you navigate problem solving under pressure, intense pressure, especially when, how many people are watching?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing, as Leanne mentioned in the previous question, is that it comes down to having a great working relationship with your team where you can trust your team. Everyone knows what they can do to help support the team and help support the robot. During face-offs, right before our last fight against Hypershock, we were in the test box and Valkyrie caught on fire. And we had to take the entire robot apart and put it all back together again in 90 minutes. And so
Oh,
we really needed to have everyone be on their A game and figuring out where they could contribute. Everyone's hands were in the robot all at the same time, swapping out components and modules and making sure that everything was good to go. And so I think there's a huge amount of trust in the team and psychological safety that if anyone has an idea about how to make things go more smoothly or better, that they feel comfortable bringing them up. Um, as Bam mentioned too, this is an experience that we're all learning from. And so when things go wrong, a lot of it is building from our previous experience of, well, how did this go last time and what did we do here? And and how do we think we could make this better? Um, but a lot of it is about trusting the process and trusting that like we are learning as we go. BattleBots and designing for BattleBots is not a known solved problem. It's something that we're all learning from. And sometimes people make mistakes. We've all done it at some point or another. We've made a bad call or a bad design decision that has cost us a fight. I can remember a couple where, there was one fight we had in 2019 where I got my physics principles mixed up because I was tired, and I made a recommendation and convinced the team that we should go with that. And we probably lost the fight because of that. And that meant that we didn't make it into the top 16. And uh, so I think this resilience to failure is really important, and treating things not as problems or failures, but as learning opportunities. Thinking about, okay, this didn't work this time. What could we change about next time to make sure that it doesn't happen again? And you can see that in the way we approached our Hypershock fight, where we're going from, we had these two failures before. We changed the design of the robot so that those failures wouldn't happen. We actually changed the way that our weapon shaft was designed so that it wouldn't break in the same way that it had done in our previous fight. And Bam did an amazing job kind of practicing how she would drive in those first 2 seconds so that we would come prepared. And so it's always this iterative learning process that I think we have to trust when problems happen and when things break and go wrong, that we can only make the best call that we can with the information that we have right now, but we will learn from that and do a little bit better next time.
Yeah, and there's like a lot, like I feel like they're having the openness that I really like, the psychological safety term. But having that sort of like there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's no such thing as something that's obvious. Like always just like, everyone we want everyone on the same page, and you want to just like have that momentum with what we're going to change next time, or what can we do better. And I think like there's just sort of that addiction as an engineer of like problem solve, problem solve, problem solve, fix all of the things that we can in our control. And I think that usually, at least with this application, it really shows that how much we've like changed and grown in the last 7 years. So yeah.
Yeah, and one additional thing to add is that I think BattleBots is a very unique experience because the engineering and the design is never done. Like even when we have a complete robot, we throw the robot in the box, it breaks in new ways, it comes back in ruins. We need to do engineering on the spot in 2 hours. We need to figure out a way to get things unstuck. We need to figure out ways to get things not interfering with each other. The frame has twisted. How do we fix it? So thinking on the spot, but staying calm and having that confidence that things will be able to come together and we'll be able to get the robot in the box in the next 15 minutes. That's something like that's super fun, super unique to this whole thing that we do. But again, it's like expecting that we will be learning from these failures and learning from it, and like improving each time we come back.
And Alex, something that you said struck me when you talked about the physics design, that maybe you were a little tired and got something not as perfect as it should have been. How much working on inanimate objects is teaching you about human design and how we're wired, right? And how, working together and finding the solutions to the problems. And Leanne, you weren't lying when you said, we can't all be panicking when the ship goes down. When Alex was talking about the robot literally on fire. I mean, you're literally talking about figuratively the ship going down there. So beyond the competition, you are all so passionate about inspiring young engineers because that's the next wave. So how is combat robotics helping to grow that next generation of innovators? What advice would you give to someone who may want to get involved?
So one of the nice things with Valkyrie is we've sort of made like being approachable and having our robot be our calling card of like, come get involved, come do this. Like we're just people. You can do this too. There's robotcombatevents.com that has anywhere like in the world listed events that are pretty regular. Sometimes a lot of schools, like if you're not financially able to just start throwing money into a robot, a lot of schools have FIRST Robotics or other robotics programs. I also got started in FIRST Robotics, so that would be a good way of like looking and seeing if there's that, or like looking on the US FIRST webpage that will list all the local teams in your area. And then sometimes like there's homeschool teams or there's volunteers that are able to help with smaller stuff, or you can start a new team from scratch, which I know is a big undertaking, but I don't know, like Girl Scout, Boy Scout teams start all the time, or like other projects or drama clubs or whatever. It's just another sort of social group. Um, but yeah, robots are a nice way to like draw in kids and get their attention, and I think that that's sort of why we go, hey, while you're here, you could do this too. And it's a way like so I mentor a high school robotics team, and one of the things that I show them regularly is how like the boring classes they're taking will actually matter with like stuff they want to do. Like if they want to design and build a robot, that takes materials knowledge, that takes physics, that takes math. Like there's a lot of that in it. So yeah, you don't like your algebra class, but look at what you can actually do with that algebra to translate into like building things and being more confident with your design.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. Bam and I actually have done research and taken classes in in education and in learning. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in learning and childhood development is a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And in a fixed mindset, your view is that some people are born innately smart and creative, and other people are not. When in reality, it's that creativity and intelligence is something that you can grow and something that you can develop and practice. And the more that you learn from your mistakes and be willing to try stuff, the more you will learn. Combined with what Leanne said, where you are learning to apply things in a way that's exciting to you. If you're learning math out of the context of a real world project, then it might not be very interesting. But robotics and combat robotics gets you to make all of these links between all of these different disciplines in an exciting medium where you can figure out, oh, like I need to do some math to figure out, if I build this flipper robot, how high can I throw my opponent, right? And what motors will I need to source in order to do that? And then what electronic stuff do I need to know in order to power those motors? And so it gets into this rabbit hole really quickly of like kids are teaching themselves engineering, teaching themselves design because they are like learning what they need to know in order to get this thing to work. And what we often see is at these events that Leanne was describing, there's events ranging from 150-gram weight classes all the way to 30 pounds. You can find these events all over the country and all over the world. And we see kids coming to these events with their first robots. They go in their first fight, maybe the robot explodes, and that's okay. And then they come back 6 weeks later with a brand new robot with maybe their design is improved. They've figured out how to adjust for those failure modes, and the robot's a little bit better, and maybe they win a fight their next time. And so it's this great hands-on, tangible way to learn and practice design and engineering, and learn the power of iteration that's been this constant theme throughout our discussion. That it's not about are you designing a winning design or a losing design. It's about you're trying to be a little bit better with each iteration, and you're trying to take that next step, and eventually you'll get to a point where your robot is doing really well and winning events.
Yeah, and today it's become more like easier than ever to get started with like 3D printing and everything like that. There are like websites and teams that sell kit bots, so you could literally just buy the kit, and just put it in the box and compete. You don't even need to start off by designing your own robot. And once you do that, you might see things starting to fail in new ways, and then you have ideas, and then you can start iterating from there. So that's how we have a lot of kids who just get started by just buying things, buying robots online. And in addition to that, the combat robot community is amazing. I've become really good friends and got connected with really, really amazing people through combat robots. So, you might like ask people questions about, hey, what do you think about this design? And then there's going to be 10 people jumping in to help you and support you in that way. And it's just super, super rewarding, super exciting.
Such a wonderful conversation. I have so enjoyed this time. I can't believe we're out of time almost, but not only was it exciting to hear all of your stories and especially the big win, but this is really, it's so practical for life, regardless of what you're doing. It just teaches these young people so much about what they need to know in the world and failure and learning. And just really enjoyed having you all here. Leanne Cushing, Bam Singsene, and Alex Crease, all from the Ultimate Victory Champion Team Valkyrie for BattleBots. Thank you all for being here. Congratulations on your big win, and look forward to seeing what's next for Team Valkyrie. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you for listening and tuning in to Higher Automation. If you would like to learn more, you can connect with today's guests on LinkedIn, and be sure to visit highrobotics.com to explore more episode of the podcast and discover solutions for your warehouse storage and fulfillment needs. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to connect with you on another podcast soon.